So there's a reason why we talk about consequences at the end of all the other skills of conscious discipline, and that's because in order to be able to use consequences effectively, a child has to feel safe and connected first. So all of those things that we've been working on this year to help kids feel safe and connected to their caregivers all have to kind of be in place and established in order for a consequence to be effective. If a child feels disconnected or unsafe in a classroom, it doesn't matter how many different ways we try to apply consequences in that situation, they're not going to be in a place where their little brains can learn, because as we talked about with brain states, in order to learn, a child needs to be in their green space, and in order to be in our green space, we have to feel safe and connected. So hopefully you can start to kind of see how these things layer on top of each other. And if I have a child who's really withdrawn, is constantly exhibiting the same behaviors, the first thing that I need to really take a look at is this child feeling safe and connected in our classroom? And the hard part can be that if their home environment is not a place where they feel safe or connected to their caregivers, this could be a process that has to restart over and over every day that they come, and can take a lot of time. If the child's only there with you part-time, it can take even longer. If they're with you full-time every day, Monday through Friday, for 8 hours a day, you're going to be able to establish some of those routines and safety, and the time it takes for them to transition from feeling unsafe to then coming into your classroom and being able to let down and rest into that safety should get shorter over time. For a kiddo who's absent a lot or is in a part-time care situation, it could take a lot longer. And sometimes we may just have to spend all of our time in that safety and connection piece with that child. But let's say that you've established that safety and connection, and now we are faced with a challenging behavior. So what we've created for you this month is a flow chart, and the flow chart's going to start at the beginning with the challenging behavior on top. And then what we have to assess, is this a lack of willingness? Is it a missing skill? Or is it a skill that a child has demonstrated and they're connected with us? And here's why we need to know the difference. If it's a lack of willingness, that usually is that whole connection leads to compliance and disconnection leads to defiance. So if we have a child who we feel like is feeling really withdrawn, is kind of like, I don't care, no consequences seem to work, a lot of times that's a sign that the child's not feeling connected, whether it's to the classroom as a whole or to you as a caregiver or teacher in that classroom. So by helping them feel part of the school family through jobs, through I love you rituals, through letting them be a helper, through doing I love you rituals and really intentional one-on-one time with them as you can throughout the day, we're going to rebuild that connection, really double down on that. So anytime we're seeing a lack of willingness, we need to ask ourselves, is the connection there? We can still let natural consequences happen in those situations, but trying to teach in those situations, it's going to be really difficult because, again, in order to teach, they have to be in that green space for it to retain. So if we feel like it's a lack of willingness or a child who's looking really withdrawn, we're going to double down on our safety and connection. And it may mean bringing in somebody from the outside, another mentor in your school, one of your directors, or a teacher that's really bought into the conscious discipline to observe and maybe give you some ideas and to go through with you. Is the day feeling structured enough? Is it predictable? Are our limits consistent and we reinforce them consistently because that provides safety? Is that connection piece there? Am I looking at this child through a lens of positive intent and seeing the best in them? All of those things have to be in place first. So that is the left side of your flow chart. The next one is a missing skill. And with our kids birth to 3 especially, that's usually where a lot of their misbehavior is going to fall. It may be the missing skill of self-regulation. I have big feelings and I can't yet regulate those in an appropriate way. Or it could be I haven't developed the skill to wait yet. So a lot of higher executive functioning skills, taking turns, being patient, problem solving, a lot of those things just quite aren't established yet in that birth to 3, even up to 5, depending on the skill. And so we need to stop and use that skill of positive intent and teach the new skill. And this one, you're going to get the language for this again, and it is, oh, you wanted, and then tell them, and you can guess, you might not always know, but let's say you see a child that's sitting there and incessantly poking at another child. Oh, you wanted her attention, so you poked her. You didn't know what else to do. You may not poke, that's not safe. If you want her attention, tap her on the shoulder just like this, or say her name and wait for her to look at you. So tell them what you want them to do. So you're going to use that positive intent. Oh, you were wanting to play with that toy. So you grabbed it. We can't grab our toys from our friends. That's not safe or kind, whatever word you want to use. If you'd like a turn, say, turn, please, and teach an age-appropriate skill for them to use. It may take hundreds of repetitions of you saying that and some development on their part for them to be able to communicate that. So you're going to repeat that each time that happens, and you're going to use the same skill you want them to use. So if you want them to tap you on the arm or hold your arm to get your attention, if you want them to say a name, if you want them to say turn please, whatever it is that you want them to use, you're going to give that same thing to them, that same suggestion each time. This might be a great thing to sit down with your co and talk about, are there certain behaviors we see repeatedly that we need to come up with so that it's at the tip of our tongue what we want them to do. So let's say a child isn't cleaning up and we wanted them to clean up their toys. Oh, you wanted to keep playing, so you left the blocks all out. Playtime is over, so we're going to put the blocks back in just like this, and you're going to show them how to do that. So you're going to give them words for what they're wanting, and then you're going to help them know what you're needing them to do. And then again, if that sends them into a blue or red zone, then we're going to go back to that DNA process and say, oh, you were hoping to keep playing. It's so hard when we can't play. Take a deep breath. You can handle this. We're not going to change the limit. Whatever it was we'd asked them to do is still what they need to do, but we're going to help them calm and co-regulate with us to get back to a place that they can do that. Then the last one is, if a child has demonstrated a skill before and is connected with us, and then they're choosing to disobey in the moment, or whether it's disobey or to do something that's outside of the rules of our classroom, that's when we can start to use logical or imposed consequences. Natural consequences we want to allow to happen naturally. As long as they're safe, they are the most effective teacher, even as adults. I'm thinking of a situation today in our building. We had reserved a space way back at the end of the year. Another group had reserved a different space for a meeting. This is coming up on Friday of this week, and their group got too big, so they wanted to bump us out of our room and take over our space because they felt like their meeting was more important, even though we had reserved the space a while back. And so it was kind of that, oops, I'm so sorry that you didn't get the right space, or that you outgrew your space, but we already have that space reserved, and it's something that's not flexible and we can't move. I'm so sorry. And I gave her empathy. I'm like, that's really hard. That's happened to us before, but unfortunately we can't help you and give you our space. That natural consequence of her having to figure out something different is going to make her plan differently next time, right? So even as adults, sometimes we face natural consequences of our decisions or misplanning or whatever. Those are the best teachers in life. I didn't have to do anything. Nobody's going to have to punish her. She's going to have to problem solve and figure out a new solution that will cause her to maybe do something different next time. Those types of situations we can create for our kids. If you've asked a child to put, let's say they brought something special for show and tell, and you've asked them to put it in their cubby to keep it safe, and then it ends up getting broken, we don't need to punish that. That's going to be a really natural consequence, that they're going to be really sad that got broken. So we get to empathize and say, that's really hard. You chose to run around with your toy and it broke, and now you're sad. Take a deep breath and breathe with me. We can handle this. So things like that can happen. It's the kid who's eating an ice cream cone and it falls off. Sometimes we want to jump in and save them and rescue them. Oh, let me get you another one, because we can't handle their hard feelings. Sometimes we want to punish them because we're frustrated because they didn't listen, because it could have been avoided. But what we want to do is try to teach. And so when we are doing logical consequences, we need that to be our goal. And when we think about consequences, we're thinking about, how can I teach a new behavior, not how can I just stop a behavior. So we're not trying to just control the child. And we have to be careful that we're not doing punishment and reward type things where I'm all of a sudden deciding if this is a good behavior or a bad behavior, and I'm telling a child how to feel about it. Instead, as much as possible, we want them to feel the consequence, which again, those can be sometimes just very natural. And if they are going to be imposed or logical consequences, we want to make sure that they're respectful, that they relate, that they're not too severe, that they make sense, right? And so the language we're going to use is, you have a choice. You can choose to blank the desired action and blank the positive consequence, or you can choose to keep doing whatever they're doing that's not okay, and this is what will happen. Tell me, and then ask them to repeat it and clarify it back to you. So an example for this, again, if we're going to that poking child, let's say we know that this child knows how to get their friend's attention in a good way. You've seen them ask and interact with kids well. They have good language. So this is maybe a 4 or 5 year old who's pestering kids at their table, and he keeps hitting his neighbor with his pencil, and they're coloring and doing a craft all together at a table. And so you might come up and say, "Oh, you have a choice. You can keep your pencil on your paper and color, and if you need his attention, tap him like this. Or if you keep poking him with your pencil, you're going to choose to sit at a different, you'll be telling me that you're going to choose to sit at a different table today." And then you're going to ask them, repeat it back. "Tell me what will happen again if you poke him with your pencil." And you want him to say, "I have to move to that table and work by myself today." And the best that they can, again, they are going to need to be old enough to be able to do that, and that be able to be articulate enough to tell you back what the expectation is. And then when they start doing it again, there's no warnings. We don't ask again. We just say, "Oh, I can see by your actions that you've chosen to work alone at this table today. You can try to play again with your friends tomorrow." It's really important that we set that expectation up front, that we don't do a lot of warnings, and that we follow through swiftly so that our words have meaning to them. Again, that may send them into blue. They might start begging, whining, and pleading. And you're going to give empathy, and you're going to stay the calm, normal tone. We're not going to have a big reaction. We're going to let the feelings apply to them. When we try to punish kids, and if our intent is to punish or make them feel bad or feel guilty about what they did, it tends to flip them into a blaming and defending or deflecting mode. And then if we try to save them, we're basically then holding all of their feelings for them and not allowing them to feel the results of their consequences so they don't learn anything. Whereas if we're teaching them, we're really trying to help them to reflect on how they feel about the impact of their choice and to take responsibility for that action. That feeling that they get is what's going to provide that motivation to learn a new skill or do things differently in the future. So again, you'd walk up, ideally, you're going to set the expectations at the very beginning. We can play in the sensory bin as long as the beans stay in the table. If we throw the beans, the lid goes back on and we'll be all done for today. If you do that ahead of time and then they start throwing the beans, then we just come and put the lid on top and say, "Oh, I guess we've chosen to not play in the beans. We can try again tomorrow." And you can use the language of safety really well. Like, the beans stay in the table because beans on the floor are not safe. And then when they throw the beans on the floor, beans on the floor aren't safe, so we're going to close this for now. We can try again later. And when we have that really immediate follow through and a really calm tone, it allows them to just experience the consequence for themselves. So I hope that's helpful. You're going to get the flow chart. You're going to get the language so that you can remember challenging behavior. Is this a lack of willingness? So are they disconnected, not feeling safe? Is it a missing skill that I need to teach, positive intent, which is most of them? Or is this a logical consequence scenario where I know they have the skill and they're choosing not to use it? And again, this comes last because we really need to have that safe feeling in our classroom where kids feel connected in order for us to then teach the skills to them. And these are skills that have to be taught and reinforced in positive ways for kids to learn. They're not innate. We are selfish beings by our natural desire. We want, especially at that age, they're very much orbiting around their internal self, and that's age appropriate. So we have to help teach them skills like sharing, waiting, patience, turn taking, all of those things, and to think of others. And it's going to really help set them up for kindergarten so much better, in life in general, if they can have these skills. So safe and connected first, and then natural consequence always best, as long as it's safe. There are some things that obviously aren't safe to let them learn that way. And then the last option, and then the positive intent, the language of positive intent, is to help teach them a skill that we're not sure that they have down yet. And then again, once we know they have that skill, then we can use those imposed or logical consequences. You'll have all the language for that, and I'm excited to hear how it goes, and I would love to get some examples and scenarios back from you. So if you try it in situations that's not working, tell your team so that then next month in April we can troubleshoot those. Wish you well. Hope you have a great month.